Welcome. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni, the founder of Transformative Harmonics, a podcast that offers listeners a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. I am excited today to bring Marcella Cox to the studio to have a conversation about one of the many psychotherapies that are available in healing programs that include the body, which, if you know my work, I'm a proponent for bringing the body into anything really that you are doing, that the body is the keeper of much of our stories, and we hold our stories in the body. And the interesting thing that you'll find in this conversation is, for both of us, we entered into our work in a way that allowed for curiosity and an expansion to unfold that opened us up to the returning and bringing together spirituality and psychotherapy again through the way in which we hold space and work with our clients. And so I hope that this program provides you with an opportunity to hear the ways in which many providers are expanding beyond the box to bring spirituality back into the practice and to demystify the mystical and to start to speak into the space about how we are truly made of mind, body, and spirit. Marcella Cox is a therapist, author, and presenter who has devoted her career to exploring the intersection of embodiment, trauma healing, and eating disorder recovery. She's a Level 3 certified internal family systems therapist, an approved IFS clinical consultant, and an assistant trainer for Somatic IFS, developed by Susan McConnell. Marcella leads Somatic IFS and IFS for disordered eating workshops, trainings, and retreats. She hosts these retreats for groups and professionals. She is committed to creating an inclusive and empowering learning environment where participants can explore the transformative potential of IFS and Somatic IFS. Marcella is also the founder and executive director of Kindful Body, providing online therapy and nutrition counseling for eating and body issues in California, as well as the co-founder of the IFS Consultation Collective, providing weekly consultation with IFS-led trainers. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. We're back this week with a guest that I've been trying to bring on a few times. I think we've tried, and I'm so thrilled that we finally got our schedules to click. She's a very busy person these days once we start to talk about what she's doing. So I'm thrilled. And I'd like to invite the guests that are listeners to, if you haven't already, go ahead and create some space for this conversation, because this is going to be a big meal. We're going to cover a lot of different topics. And so I want to make sure there's some space for digesting. And so if you haven't already and you're getting used to this podcast, there's a moment that we arrive together. And arriving is so important because it helps us to know where we are, to take in what's happening in the moment, and then to decide where we're going next. And so that mindfulness of the present moment where we are. So just take a moment before we begin to notice where you are and what's around you. And then begin to, at the same time, become aware of your body and what's happening inside, in the breath, in the way that you're connected to the bones or the muscles or the skin, or just bringing your awareness out of your head and starting to answer that question, how do I know I'm here? Well, not someplace else. And as you do that, I'd like to invite you to feel what you're in contact with, whether it's the seat of your car, the seat of your couch, the floor, and start to bring yourself into relationship with that very thing that you're with. And you might notice a breath or something changes. even at the thought of being in relationship with an object. And in this podcast, most of the time, that's what we're talking about, right? That everything is relationship. So welcome, Marcella. I am so thrilled to be here with you to talk about, amongst other things, relationship and what that means in multiple dimensions and time and space. So I'm thrilled that we're together. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Paula. It's an honor to be here today. And I just love the way you started the podcast and this reminder that we're always in relationship to something, right? Whether it's relationship to ourselves, relationship to another, relationship to our environment. It's just such an important reminder. And so thanks for starting us off that way.
Yeah, it helps me to say it as well, because we do have to remind ourselves often.
Yeah.
Especially right now, with so many things taking us out of relationship.
Well, we're resonant beings, aren't we? And so we're always being impacted by our environment and other people, and we can start to use some discernment on what we want to be in relationship with, or people we want to be in relationship to. So appreciate you bringing that in.
Great.
And we're always being impacted, and we're also impacting others. So this podcast is a great way to introduce folks to other people's work and what you're holding, right? All the there's so much that you bring to the world as far as your wisdom and your guidance, and so you're just a gift in my eyes. So
well, you are as well. We might as well tell people, that we met. We just decided in 2023. I'm so glad our paths crossed from Heidi, and she brought you in through the IFS community, and then you spent some time in our mentoring program, our immersion, and got to know you quite a bit, and your life has picked up quite a bit since that time. So we're going to get to hear about that. But what brought us together was using the sound technology and coming together in circle and entering into an exploration of the body and the psyche. And we'll just start there with that, perhaps, and maybe start to share our thoughts of what happens when, we start to bring these different programs. I was coming from somatic experiencing and embodied recovery. You're coming from IFS. But we had this commonality in understanding the sound. And
that's right.
Yeah, we began to bring those together. So how do we help the listeners to begin to understand then how we hold all of this?
Yeah, that's a big question. And as you were sharing all of that, what was coming up for me is like all the science, right? All of our studies that we've done, you in somatic experiencing, and your studies with nervous system regulation, with the Safe and Sound protocol, and now the Rest and Restore protocol, and sound healing, right? And embodiment, right? That's I also bring with IFS, Somatic IFS, and I've been studying similar things with nervous system regulation and Safe and Sound protocol. And there's even more research coming out on, energy healing and Reiki, and how these different modalities can really help us in our healing journey. But I think what you and I both discovered in other conversations we've had is like, oh, when we're really kind of embodied and regulated, other things show up. Other things, spiritual things might show up. Our guides might show up. Our ancestors might show up. Some mystical things start happening, which is really unexpected, right? And it can assist with healing, and it can assist with, like where we're going, providing us guidance. And we just have my sense is, in my own experience and from those that I've worked with, is like we're more connected in our intuition. So it's not only, and the intuition might also be spiritual of like, am I on the right path? Am I? Yeah. So as I say all that, I'm just curious of, is that your experience too?
Yeah, I think as I reflect on I think we're both following the same sort of cadence in what we're putting together, that we have these doorways in, be it IFS, be it somatic experiencing, be it any type of embodied, right? Healing and trauma work. And the more that that healing takes place, the more we become embodied in the present moment. And then from that we begin to blossom and feel more of who we are, which is energetic, right? And it is more intuitive. It is more our sensory systems wake up. And then there's a whole nother world to explore at that point, right? From this more embodied perspective. And that can't always be explained by science, although there's a lot of people talking about the pineal gland now and about the different parts of the brain, right?
That's right.
So it's not, I think, it's kind of neck and neck. Science is trying to keep up with what's happening for people.
That's right. It's trying to explain it, right? As we observe what's happening for people, like how does this make sense? How can we understand what's happening?
Yes.
And that's what, our right brain likes to do. Or I know it's all of our brain, but like the more logical parts of ourselves, right? They want to understand why is this happening? And we don't yet have all that science to explain why, but it does seem to happen. A couple things that you just shared is, as my experience, right, with IFS is, as we're healing, it's not only this embodied experience, but we have more access to our self energy. And self energy is inherently relational, right? You started off the podcast saying, oh, we're in relationship to others, we're in relationship to our environment, we're in relationship to ourselves. And self energy is inherently, as I said, relational. And so as we heal with IFS, right, from an IFS lens, those burdens that our parts had been carrying no longer have to carry them. So it's a constraint release model. So we can be in relationship to our parts. Those burdens, we're not as burdened. We're not carrying those beliefs about ourselves or those energies or those emotions. At the time of the wounding, what happens is, from an IFS lens, is protectors come in and they say, oh, that was overwhelming. And so I'm going to exile that younger, more vulnerable part of myself, as well as the energy that it was carrying. And so those become those burdens. And so as we heal, right, those exiles get to reclaim their sweet, joyful, sensitive qualities, right? Their creativity, right? We just see more life, right? These sweet, sweet younger parts of ourselves come back to us. They're no longer having to be locked away. And so more of yourself can be available to be in that relationship with yourself, to others, to our bodies, right? To feel those energies through our bodies.
That was so beautiful, the way that you described the process of bringing more of ourselves into the present moment and having that life force to then be in relationship. And that's exactly what I see as well. One of the questions that pops for me when I'm talking to people from the IFS community, and if listeners don't know what IFS is, it's internal family systems. And we're talking about somatic IFS here. Is self energy the soul? In my program, I talk about embodied wisdom and the soul a lot. How do you hold that?
Well, that's such a good question. And I'm going to back up just a little bit in answering it, in that I think our field of psychotherapy has done a disservice in cutting off the spiritual realm of a person, right? It has to be evidence-based. We have to be able to measure it. If you bring in spirituality, right, you can't get CEs for it. So I think as a field, we've had to exile this idea of our soul in our work with clients. And yet you raise such an important question, like, is this self energy, is this true essence of me, my soul? And I believe that that's a question that you would need to ask internally, right? We don't want to project what we believe onto our clients. And if it feels true, right, that this is my soul, this is my core essence, this is my spirit inside of me, then yeah. I mean, it is for me. I can answer that question for in my system, like my core essence does feel like my soul. It does feel, yeah, and there's wisdom. We're talking about, okay, we come into the body, right? And then we can connect to this spiritual aspect that then is available to us, or not so in our heads. And as we connect to it, like that, I believe that there's some soul wisdom that we can be guided by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's often what I feel what is happening in the sound experience is there's a dropping into a deep conversation with not only the subconscious, but our divine essence of who we are. And that information comes through sometimes direct revelation, as Sandra Ingeman would say. Things are just explained, right? Your family pattern or why something happened to you as a child, right? Sometimes it comes through metaphor, vision. You know this from doing the sound journey. Sometimes the information comes through emotion, having an emotional release, and then coming to the end of that release and having a aha and meaning making that happens.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that was also what happens in Somatic IFS as well, or in the way that you combine that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll just maybe first of all say that was my experience when I did the sound journeys with you. Like sometimes I would have visions of the divine feminine and the divine masculine dancing, like, oh, you need both of these energies and they're both within me. And I just, that knowing. And sometimes I had access to ancestors show up and allowing me to rest. And those ancestors, those grandmothers showing up, and they were reaching down into the core of the earth, and like they have connection to the primordial mother. It's like, wow, okay. The things that would emerge were quite, like, when you, as I'm saying them right now, the experience was really profound, but putting words to them and what are people going to think we're doing, and it's not psychedelics. This is sound healing that's happening. And I would say, stepping back with Somatic IFS and what that is and how that's different from IFS. A lot of people know about parts work and this model that Dick Schwartz developed 40 years ago. And Susan McConnell was one of Dick's first trainers. And she is the person that really brought in, she and a couple other early trainers who are all women, brought in the body, right? The wisdom of the body. They're Hakomi trained. And she then developed a model of how does the body flow into each step of this model. And this idea, this bringing the somatic therapy and being with what's unfolding moment to moment, as opposed to kind of this more maybe masculine, logical, doing IFS, right? Being an embodied relationship with your client and your client being an embodied relationship with their parts, right? I hate this word, but it's a game changer. It really does make a difference when you have that embodied self energy and people feel it. We are resonant beings, as we started the conversation, right? We can feel people's hearts. Our hearts can feel if how we're showing up is true and authentic, and they can trust it, right? That resonance gives that safety and trust for the healing work to happen. And we need that embodied self energy. And so, how do we help our clients access it? Especially when they've had these experiences where they don't want to go to their body, because remember what I said, that what's exiled in the body is that overwhelm. It's those emotions that are locked back in time when that event happened, right? Too much, too fast, too soon, or not enough, you know, in the case of neglect. But with this embodied self energy, there is, oh, wait, there's someone else here that I can start to, might take some time to build that trust, but it does shift. It actually, I'm just always feel like it's a huge honor and privilege to be with people in their work. And I hold it as like, I'm a guide. I'm there to help them deepen into what is true for them. I'm not an expert. I'm holding this space for their own knowing to emerge.
Yeah, a space holder. A space holder. And it speaks to, in a very tangible way, we're tapping into the wholeness that's already there and bringing it forward to support the healing. So it is a different paradigm where we see the client is not as broken, because there's a belief that energy is innate in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's bringing that forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much more empowering.
Much more empowering. And, I know you also offer the Safe and Sound protocol, and I've just been kind of amazed by the sound healing, through the nervous system regulation, the sound healing that can happen even without IFS, right? That sound healing offers that. And my sense is, in my experience, is that because it's bottom up, right? What is there just naturally emerges of what needs attention. And it's nice to then be able to integrate IFS, and for my system, Somatic IFS is where I focus, because what's showing up is in the body, right?
Yes.
And so when we can connect to it in the body,
Yes.
It, as I was saying, right, that those parts feel met and accompanied, right? We don't have to, okay, if you have some activation happening, let's just meet it and welcome it. And then it feels accompanied, and then things start to shift, right? Like we just are co-regulating with it. We don't need it to change. We don't need it to step back or pull on its energy, or no, it's welcome. You're part of the system. I know you are also studying the gene keys. And what I love about this is this idea, like we have the shadow, and then there's a gift, and then there's the city, right? The lesson, or the higher realm. And that in all the shadow is the gift.
Yes. For me, gave a lot of permission to bring in compassion and non-judgment, to be able to tolerate and stay with the shadow, so we can feel that embodied experience of it, how it lives in the body, and then the spirit of it holds. Yeah. It's a beautiful system for inviting that connection,
Yep.
passion.
Yeah. And they fit so well together, right? Because it's kind of giving, and for folks who don't know what this is, it's based off of your birth chart and the human design, and based off of when and where you were born. And they have these different pearls that apply to you, and it's also connected with the I Ching, as I understand it,
And astrology.
and
And
astrology.
astrology, as it's capturing the spheres of the planets as they express themselves. If you think about astrology is about archetypes. So each planet holds an archetype. So the spheres of the gene keys are the archetypes of the planets that live in you. So you have a solar system inside of you that you see visually when you get your gene keys chart. And you may like this part that I'm playing with lately. The core wound is that seed of a deep wound that is your kind of your identity, the thing you're here working on. But within that wound, we have fragments of humanity's 6 core wounds. And so I feel that system also opens a door for us to move into a more universal holding of our wounds rather than, again, this reductionist individual perspective about our healing. It's like, no, I have this and so do many others. And I have I have 1% of my teacup is holding this wound, and 5% is holding this wound. And so it just invites a shared acknowledgement that we are all working through the same themes in a way.
Yeah. I love that, Paula. I love that you brought in the collective, and that the collective also lives within us, and that when we do healing on ourselves, right, that creates those ripple effects in the collective. And I'll just share, I was recently on retreat with Susan McConnell, and what happens when we have collective embodied self energy, right? That collective healing that happens in group is so powerful, right? And it's what came to me when I was just recently with her was that we're spiritual embodied beings, that the spiritual realm shows up as people are embodied in group, and it's being held by something larger, and the healing is something larger, right? That whatever's showing up in that group needs all those people there. It needs to be healed for us and for the collective.
Beautiful. And I can hear an acronym in there.
A SEB. We're just SEBs, spiritual embodied beings.
I love it. I love opportunity. We need new acronyms. I love it. So yeah, I would love to have been there to see that and experience that live. Sometimes we have moments of that online, but I can just imagine how powerful it was to be live and to have a large group. I feel that in those type of situations too, we also have the support of the natural world as well, and the unseen world. And so there's so many different levels of support around us to hold and help whatever needs to come up in those type of events and groups.
Yes, absolutely. The land that we were on helped facilitate that too. I'm 100% certain in the unseen realms, ancestors were showing up, and yeah, it was quite beautiful. And for me, it's just such a privilege. Many years back, I was like, okay, what's like my path and purpose? And I was at one of the retreats, supporting the retreat, and I was like, there's nothing more greater than this, right? Like to hold space for witness and help facilitate that healing. It's as I said, a privilege to do that work. And I just am so appreciative that Susan, she's now allowing myself and colleague LaDonna Silva will be starting to lead Somatic IFS retreats. And you don't have to be a level one trained. We're going to open it up to IFS informed folks to bring this healing out into the world. So we get to start to do that. And, we're also going to help with trainings, and we're doing some groups together. So that's
wonderful.
Kind of exciting to help this model get out there into the world.
Yeah. Well, to bring this healing space that it sounds like you and your teams have created for individual and planetary healing. It's so powerful. And where do these retreats take place when they happen?
Well, Susan has her retreats. She does them in Costa Rica, Portugal, and somewhere in the U.S., normally on the East Coast. I think she's going to come to Asheville, to North Carolina, at the end of the year. And LaDonna and I are just planning our retreats. We have, we're probably going to stay local in California initially because we're both from the Bay Area. And then we are also looking at maybe Montana and Arizona. And we've been invited to Australia and Bali. So we'll see what 2027, how it unfolds. But it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I love to see the circles grow. And it's the idea that, you're bringing people together to heal in community.
That's right. That's right. Finding that healing land, right? The place that we're likely to start is in the Redwoods, in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Yeah.
Do you find when you've done it with the land itself on a particular spot that some of the history of the land comes up to be healed?
Yeah, I do believe that does happen. I could share more, and I'm holding back because they're not my stories around what happened for other
that's what
others. So I'm just
that's okay. I was going to say, I'm imagining that some people in your groups are quite intuitive and quite plugged in to that. So they're going to get a lot more information.
Yes.
And, they can share their story, but thank you for acknowledging.
Yeah. And also the land is holding us and healing as we're healing, and allowing nature to help unburden, right? Like some amazing unburdenings happening that nature is helping facilitate.
Yes.
As we're holding space.
Yeah. And that for me speaks of the why is the feminine awakening, because this is an aspect of it. It's the awakening of the earth and the awakening of the reciprocity and support that is available when we come into relationship with the natural world. And so the correction around the imbalancing that's happened is that we've lost that natural capacity to process and heal many of the burdens that we're holding. And she is a vital part of that.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting that you bring that up. So what Susan has done is, when we're doing Somatic IFS, we're doing IFS, but we're bringing in the body in each step of the model. And we're doing that through these 5 different practices. And the first practice is somatic awareness. And Susan has associated somatic awareness to the earth element and our connection to earth, right? And so whenever we come into the body, we come into that connection to the earth. And the other practice is conscious breathing, and really taking the space above us and around us and having that connection to the space, right? The celestial realms, as well as the space around us. And we're breathing, and we can breathe to our parts. We can breathe more of our self energy here. right? As we breathe in the space, we might find more spaciousness inside to be with everything that's unfolding. The third practice is radical resonance, and it's all about the realm of relationship. So when we are connected to the earth, we're connected to the space above and around us, right? We find our self energy along our vertical axis, from the top of us to the bottom of us, and the bottom of us to the top of us. And, however that self energy is showing up, whether it's one of the 8 C's, compassion, connectedness, calm, curiosity, confidence, creativity, courage. Yeah, I think clarity, one of those, or just some open-heartedness, some more presence, some life force energy, feeling the tingling or the pulsating through your body. So we find that with those connections to above and below, we find ourselves, but then we start to relate. We start to relate from our heart to other people, internally to our parts, but other people and the world around us. And that's the realm of radical resonance. And Susan associates that with the water element, right? We get into the watery realms of relationship and emotion. And then the fourth practice is mindful movement, which I know you bring it into your work a lot as well. And that's really about restoring the flow of energy, right? When we have those burdens, when we have interrupted movements, restoring the flow is using the fire element, right? That energy of transformation of fire. And here we are entering the fire horse year, right? It's like, okay, there's momentum, but we're bringing that fire element of movement. And then the last practice is attuned touch. And touch is so healing. And so many of us are touch deprived or have histories of not enough of the right kind of touch or too much of the wrong kind of touch. And touch can be so healing for that. And that's not, I've asked her, is touch like with the ether? Because the ether touches everything. And Susan's like, no, it just sits within all the other practices of somatic awareness, breath, resonance, and movement.
So powerful, so beautiful. And I resonate with every piece of it. So I was tracking the elements as you were talking. And I loved how she has paired and, brought that in from formless into form in this gift. It just sounds, I can see why people are flooding to your workshops and why you're so busy now.
Yeah. Yeah. She's really put together something quite special in the way that she's organized it. And reading her book, like if anyone has a chance to read her book, I mean, she also is quite poetic in the way she puts things together.
A mystic in her own way. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just very grateful that she's one of my teachers and mentors.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad that duo came together, and I'm excited to see how you bring this forward in your own way, in the Marcella way.
Because it's not going to be the way Susan does it. It's going to be the way Marcella does it. And that's the world needs that too, I believe.
Yeah. I sat in your presence before in groups. And so I really appreciate what you bring.
Thank you,
so
Paula.
Lovely. Yeah. I was so excited. I'm excited to hear all about this and where it's going. And so so number one, we'll make sure that the book is in the book notes. And what's the name of the book?
I think it's Somatic IFS. She has 2 books. She has one, her first book. I'll just share a quick story about it. So I was on retreat with her back in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And she said, I'm going to release this book and then I'm retiring. I had just been through her retreat and I'm like, Susan, I really don't think so. I think you're onto something here. You're onto the future of IFS, really. And she was like, no, I'm I'm done. And here she is, like, it's just blossomed in ways that I don't think anyone could have ever imagined. So she has that book that she came out with in 2020, which is the first book on Somatic IFS. And then she came out with a workbook a couple of years later, I think 2023, 2020, maybe it was 2024. And in the workbook, she invited her staff to put in some experientials that we also do. So that was fun to provide some pieces for the workbook as well. And so that's a way if people are wanting to practice somatic IFS, a doorway in as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. And co-created in community. I love that.
Yes. Wow. Yes. It was very kind of her to highlight some of her staff.
Well, we'll make sure that those both are in there. And then, of course, people can find you through a couple different, it sounds like, websites and places these days, including Unite. So maybe we can share a little bit about some of the places where you'll be bringing this beautiful healing practice, and also some of the places where you're combining it with the sound now, because I know that you are bringing it here to this.
I'm bringing it yes, like I learned from you, bringing it with somatic IFS. But just to back up, answering the question about Unite. So one of the things that I worked on for 9 months, the time it would take to grow a baby, is the guideline for how to combine IFS with these listening therapies that Unite offers. So it's the Safe and Sound protocol and the Rest and Restore protocol. And so that's one project that I did. And as a result, I did a clinical conversation with Unite and Frank Anderson that folks can find on the Unite site. And Leah DeWang, who you also know, who's a gift to the world. She and I are going to have a follow-up conversation that's going to be promoted, I think, in early March. And I'm supporting Unite in a couple other ways with some immersion, helping clinicians bring the Safe and Sound protocol into their clinical practice. And as far as I'm offering some groups integrating somatic IFS and the Safe and Sound protocol. And as I said, I'm starting to do retreats. We're planning them for late 2026 into 2027. And busy. The universe is providing me with some great opportunities to bring this work forward. So I'm trusting it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're saying yes.
I'm saying yes. That's right.
Yes. See, that's right. Sure. But I love that there's a lot of different entrance points, whether you're IFS informed, whether you're a provider through the Safe and Sound program and affiliated with Unite, and then whether they're finding you through your private practice. And we'll make sure we have all the links in the show notes so people know they can reach you a variety of ways.
That's right.
Yeah. And Marcella also made a video for my program for those that come through for the SSP experience and the sound journey experience. And there's a video in there about Somatic IFS and the SSP as well. So we're going to see more and more of you in the year ahead, definitely.
Well, thanks for inviting me to do that, Paula. It's great to collaborate and let your community know about Somatic IFS and the ways that you can bring that combine the two modalities.
Yeah. I think there's so much opportunity here I always use the word, I need a new word. I always say, expanding the potential, but it's expanding, it's layering, right? More and more and more and more healing that can happen when we understand how healing happens. Like what's the crux of all healing, all these different modalities we're trained in. What's the commonality here? And how do we create the container and the spaces for really deep, powerful, transformational healing to occur when we understand the conditions needed for healing and how to show up and how to be a space holder and then how to soften into that for yourself if you're a client. So yeah, so that's the work right now of getting the space holders ready and then, creating the spaces for healing.
Yeah. Well, it's an exciting time.
It is.
To expand the potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. And amplify it, right?
Amplify is a good word.
This is what our world needs.
It does. It's time.
Yeah.
So many, I feel, are focusing, and not that it's bad, but you can see all the things around us, all the dismantling, all the things coming apart. But I do think it's important in this space to make sure people understand that there's so many wonderful things growing right now. They're seedlings. Some of them are already, strong and sturdy plants, and others are just, reaching the surface. And there's a beautiful garden and forest of new ways of being, connecting, living that is emerging around us. But it's about, paying attention or finding the programs that are talking about these things so we don't get lost in the dismantling.
That's right. That's right. To stay grounded in the dismantling. And you're growing a beautiful garden, Paula. I just have to say that. And it's where we find hope. It's where we find hope.
It's where hope is. And I'm a diehard optimist. I will be until we are going to turn this ship around.
That's right. That's right. We're bringing that energy forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So I look forward to connecting again in whatever form or shape that might come in the year of the fire horse. We'll see what happens.
That's all right. We're going to hold on. Here we go. Like it or not.
Like it or not. Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today. And it was just a treat to sit and chat about these things that we've been chatting about off camera for a while.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here with you and yeah, to discuss all these different things that are kind of coming all together, right? It's just all these different worlds are starting to come together and what is emerging, what is blossoming as a result in that beautiful garden.
I will look forward to seeing your garden grow, and I hope you stay connected to our community and that we get to meet in person one day too. We'll see if that happens along the way. So
I would love that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.